think we're just waiting for a few more.
Mary Ann?
Yep.
So there's something going on in the city that I might have to jump off at different times during this. So you just have to pick up where I left off and
Okay.
I take it on the phone.
Okay.
Okay. So
Yep.
hopefully I don't, but there's already been a bunch of phone calls
Okay.
flying around anyways. I already talked to the manager. So, but that's what's going on. All right.
Okay. All right. No problem.
Okay. All right, Michelle, how are you?
Good evening, everyone. How are you?
It
You
looks
doing
like
okay, Chief?
I'm sorry, Michelle.
I said, you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Busy.
Good.
How's everybody else doing here? Nada, you doing okay?
Doing good, Chief. Thanks for asking.
Okay. Okay. So, you
So
got
my
Rika with
apologies
us?
for the couple minutes delay. Sometimes, as you know, we can get sidetracked or set back, but I'm here and I want to thank everyone for joining us and attending this meeting on this lovely evening. And I don't want to take up too much time because I know there's quite a few things that we want to cover. And now that we've gotten past meeting each other and doing formal introductions, at least according to the new norms, this is our formal way of being able to introduce one another. I'm sorry, be introduced to one another. But just to kind of recap that, nominations for chair and the vice chair has been completed. I was nominated by Pastor Cecilia to be the chair, and Nada was nominated to be the vice chair, and Frederic is the clerk. And all the other members that are here and watching, we thank you. And we're going to jump right into the meeting because the chief is going to be discussing the police reform, and Mary Ann's going to be discussing the civil service exam application and process. And the vice chair is going to be discussing proposal that he created in reference to community ties. And of course, if anyone has anything that they'd like to add, we ask that you add it in the comments or raise your hand so that we can conduct this meeting in decent and in order. And then we'll, have any other discussions or go into what our next steps are going to be. And Chief, I pass it on to you.
Thank you, Michelle. Well, obviously, we've all been watching the news lately, and this police reform bill was passed roughly a month ago now. Many of the things that were in that bill were things that we were doing here, not just at Lowell PD, but mostly, I think we talked about this last time, in most police departments in the Northeast. We've always kind of ahead of the curve as far as policing. I know there's been challenges in other parts of the country, but our legislators felt that they needed to create this. And so, again, like a lot we already have done. But the biggest thing that they did was the creation of a police officer standard and training commission, which is a post commission. They call it post. And they're going to have wide ranging power in this state. They can't be police officers, which is a little disturbing a little bit. We're nervous about who's going to be on the board because obviously when doctors make a mistake and they go in front of the board, they're judged by other doctors. They know exactly what they're talking about. And the way this is written, a police officer cannot be on it. A retired police officer cannot be on it. There's going to be 9 members, and they have a lot of work ahead of them. They're going to be involved in the high. It's going to be interesting to watch because they're going to be involved in the hiring process, the discipline process, and there's only 9 of them. And I mean, I think there's like 168 police departments in the state. I think that's the number. But so like every time we go to hire, we'd have to send down the information to them, and I don't even know how they're going to be able to do all that. They're going to have to obviously hire staff to do investigations and to do backgrounds. Um, and then they're also going to be tasked with, say, we have an issue and someone complains against a Lowell police officer. And within 2 days of us receiving that complaint, we have to send that down to the post commission, which I don't know where they're going to be housed just yet. I don't think inside the state house, probably somewhere down there. And so then they can kind of track what happens. From that date on, we have 1 year to complete the investigation, which I think is a little long. I think in our policy, it has to be done within 30 days because you don't want someone under a cloud for 12 months, something that they did or didn't do. So you want to try to wrap up discipline issues as thoroughly and as quickly as possible for the benefit of not only the person accused or but the rest of the organization. And it's also good for the public. It's to show that we are being forthcoming and that we're being aggressive with these investigations. Many times they do go over 30 days, depending on the circumstances, but we have to document that and let the person know that complained why we're going on, and that's our policy. You don't have to do that with the post commission. You just have to let them know that you're doing one. So then, where their power even extends further is when we do an investigation and it's shown that the officer didn't do anything wrong, or the officer has shown that we proved that he's done something wrong, and we institute a discipline. Um, Something that we know in the officer's background that we consider. We have a saying here in Lowell PD. We started when we took over. As long as we're fair, we'll be fine. So we've been fair with our people, and I don't think we've had one incident where they, grieved any of the punishments to date. But they were pretty. There was some substantial stuff there. But even with that said, if we were to do something like that moving forward after July 1st, and someone doesn't agree with either our findings or the discipline, which we never really tell what the discipline is because people, either think it's going to be too harsh or it's going to be too lenient. No one can ever agree on it. So we kind of look at the particular officer and his history of what he's done here, and then work from there and how egregious the act was. So that's all played into it. But after we sit down and look ourselves in the mirror and do the discipline, someone can still go to the post commission and say, I don't think the discipline was enough. And they might agree with us and say, no, it isn't more than enough. Again, it's going to come down to who's on this board. What they can also do is if we find someone that's it's not sustained that this person did something wrong, they can turn around and go to this post commission and file a separate complaint again, saying that they want them to look at it. And it does mandate that they have to, but they can. Like I say, they're going to have to hire investigators, so the officer would be investigated a second time. So that's a little scary there, but I understand it. Transparency is huge. So, but I think it puts a lot of pressure on the police department and the particular officer. If I already get found not guilty, I'm getting tried again. So there's many things that we think are good. I always think it's good to have a set of eyes outside of policing on the police, but I still think there needs to be some of the commission, in my opinion, should have been people with experience in policing. Whether it's a retired person that doesn't have a stake in the game, a person that's done 30 years in any police department, whether it's a bigger department, Boston or whatever, state police. But like I say, when lawyers get judged, when someone takes a complaint out against them at the bar exam, it's other lawyers that listen to the evidence, and it's the same thing with the doctors. But again, it's a trust issue, I think. I think a lot of things that have happened across this country, people have lost trust in the police. And that's something that we fought very hard here in the city to make sure that doesn't happen. And that's why we've been committed to our discipline process and while being fair at the same time. So they'll have the ability to, if they find someone that has violated a policy or has broken a law, God forbid, right? They can basically decertify them, which there may be cases when that's absolutely the right move, because sometimes as a chief, that's hard to do because of civil service and because of union and contracts and but so there could be some positives here, but to me, I think it's a little scary. It's really going to come down to who the governor puts on the board. You know, if someone that comes in and has a disdain for the police, like many people do right now, I think that's going to make this job very difficult. I think it's going to scare a lot of people away. Because once you get certified by this post commission in Massachusetts, you can no longer be a police officer in Massachusetts. You really have no way to fight that. You're done, and this could be a 28-year-old man or woman with children and a mortgage, and all of a sudden they don't have a job, and now they can't reapply to become a police officer anywhere in the country. Um, so that's kind of what's really going to decide how this goes is what's the makeup of that panel. Um, we talked about the mandatory reporting, additional in-service training for school resource officers, which we don't have a problem with that. More training for anyone, all of us. I mean, in all aspects of policing, implicit bias, we do a lot of training here. Training is expensive, but you know what? It's a good investment because usually when liability issues come down the road, that your tax dollars get affected by it because the officer did something he wasn't supposed to do. That money comes out of a pool of money that could have been used somewhere else in the city for programming or something else like that. So we take that serious. We understand that every day we come in to do this job. It's just not about getting people to obey the law. It's about protecting you in other ways, financially, and building trust, as I talked about before. Um, School resource officers, which is important to us. I know there's a lot of people out there now think that we shouldn't be in the school, and there's also another group out there that thinks that we should be in every school. So we look at it as, some parents look at it, we're there to protect the children, absolutely, because we've had some terrible incidents, mostly down south, with people going into schools, and obviously the awful incident at Sandy Hook in Connecticut. So to have an officer there is that extra layer of protection for the children, because unfortunately, there's some people out there that will use them as a target. We've seen that happen many times. But the biggest thing for us, school resource officers, is building those relationships. And I think right now that's more important than ever, because we went from, in this city anyway, to me, it was like everything was fine as far as relationships, unless, I know there were some people, a smaller group that weren't happy. There's things that maybe happened in other departments in this city, and I won't go too far into that, but I'm sure if you're watching the news, you'll know. But then the whole national thing took over, and so again, we have to fight hard to build that trust and maintain that trust, and we try hard. And on these conditions, it hasn't been easy. The use of force policy changes. Um, that's probably one of our most important policies, if not the most important policy. Yeah. We watch that very closely. We'll make sure we're using all the best practices, the safest practices. But there's some changes in particular about the chokehold. Um, we don't use chokeholds. We've never trained in chokeholds. No police department in Massachusetts has ever trained or used chokeholds. This is something that you would see. Like when you were kids were watching, movies. It was all the cops in L.A. and there was a movie, and there were PDs that would use chokeholds in New York. But a lot of departments in the Northeast knew the dangers of that. I mean, you hold on for 1 second long. You're not a doctor, you know, and there's other ways, other tools to use to be able to subdue someone without hurting them or killing them, God forbid. Um, so certification of law enforcement officers. Um, I think that's a good thing. I think that having statewide oversight of training. We do have what we call the MPTC that does all of that, Mass Police Training Council, and basically they lay out what we need to do in training every year, whether it's the police academy. Every year, every police officer in the state has to go to an in-service class, and the MPTC, considering what is the best practices across the country and what is the safest use of force policies we have out there, they bring that all into in-service. So in-service, there's two main classes in in-service they have to take: CPR, so they can save someone's life, in law, right? The law class. Those are two really mandatory. Then the other 3 days are made up of, it could be, all right, what's going on here? We're getting complaints about people not treating people right. So we're going to go back over implicit bias, right? And that's a big one right now. Make sure you're treating everybody fair. So they do kind of change them every year. depending on the particular climate or what they see or what they hear from other police chiefs or town or city managers, or it could even be a group like this, what they think is important. We could obviously make recommendations and say, maybe we need to take a look at this. Working with the blind, working with the hand. We get the change all the time. I think the way it's going to work now with this new committee, that they're basically going to decide, working with the MBTC, what classes are important. And that's not a bad thing. The more brains at the table, the more experience at the table from different sides, I think is going to be it's a good thing. This bill is not totally bad, other than the 650 pages. When you have to read it, it's it kind of gets a little daunting. I think that and the big thing was too this week, obviously, if you saw from the media, us getting that certification from the accreditation committee is huge for us. This is the first time this has ever been done by the Lowell Police Department. And it's funny, I received text messages from my previous bosses here, and basically they said that you know what, you're the only one that could have got. You're the only one that could get this done. And I shot back to them saying, I'm not the one that got it done. I asked that we do it. I knew it was going to be important that we do it. I had no idea it would ever be part of this bill because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of it can be tough for a bigger department to do this, to try to get it certified and then accredited, because even for us it was like trying to turn a battleship around in a bathtub. There's a lot of moving parts with this department. I can't imagine how the bigger departments are going to be able to do it. I think it's going to take them longer. Mass State Police, who has probably in the area of 2,400 members, Boston PD, probably 2,300. So it's going to be it's going to be a challenge for them. But I know that they'll do it because now the commission basically it's mandatory. And you know what? That's good for all of us. Professionalize this police department and all the police departments across the state, because many of them have not been blessed like we have, as far as having the political support, as far as having the support of the community, as far as the funding, as far as grants that Mary Ann always finds for us. So that's why for a department, the fourth largest, we're doing all right. We actually, we it's like two baseball teams, whatever. But Cambridge has basically the same size department as us, but they have a lot of universities down, a lot more cops on the street down there, over and above Cambridge PD. But their budget is double the size of our budget. So a lot of times, like Lowell PD, we're doing great with community policing, and all of a sudden Cambridge comes out with this funky new thing that they're doing because they got, double our budget. So we were 30 million, so they're in the area somewhere over 60 million. So they have the luxuries to do. They get to work with a lot of the universities. We're fortunate to have UMass Lowell Middlesex work with us. Um, but we actually, I hope they're not listening, but we actually beat Cambridge to certification this year. So that's in policing world. You say you can't shine a sneaker. Well, we're not a sneaker, and we actually pulled this off. And like I said, it wasn't me. It was everybody. Mary Ann, we sat down. We knew what we had to do, and we took this place over. And keep the momentum going, which is part of my success. Is not only the people that work there, but the people that I worked for. Eddie Davis, Ken LaValle, Billy Taylor, and I was always lucky enough, fortunate enough to be at the table when these decisions were made, and which way are we going, and what are we going to do. And I consider it an honor to be able to carry this ball even further down the field. So that's what we're going to do here. So now we go for accreditation, and that we're hoping we have a meeting next week with our key people. Mary Ann will be there. Obviously, John Noon. We've assigned a new officer to help John Noon, who actually Chrissy Delaney, who's actually, without luck, is an assessor for the Accreditation Commission. That's her part-time job. So she's going to know exactly. That's why she helped us through the first process. She was involved when she could be, but now I have to look further down the road, and I have to look at, okay, we can probably get this accreditation done, but then I have to keep an accreditation manager. And Sergeant Noon is sitting on a civil service lieutenant's list right now in a very good spot. So if he gets made lieutenant, that would force me to have to move him. I could keep him, but if all the lion's share of the work is done and we do our accredited, well, John hopefully gets promoted, within the next year or two, then we have not a accreditation manager. There's actually an assessor of the accreditation. So we couldn't be any luckier with that. That was a home run for us. So that's our goal. And we're hoping the meeting we have next week will be more on what I can do to help those individuals do their job. I know the deputies in there because a lot of times you need to have the what we call the muscle, the rank, to make sure that everybody complies. But it was interesting during this process for certification that that's the way it was previously. That everybody kind of we don't want to do that, and I don't want to do that. I don't have to give you these policies. This time, it was like butter and bread with hot butter. It was just it went very smoothly. Everybody was in the game. So that's why I think we were able to do it. It took 29 months, but there was 159 standard. Now we have another 95 we have to do. And I'm hoping for 8 months to a year. But again, like I said, we'll meet with the team and ask them what I can do as the superintendent to make their job easier, make their job quicker. If it's more people, if it's whatever. But I tell you, if we can pull this accreditation thing off, I think there's maybe 9 in the whole state, and much of them. I know. I think Chelmsford is. Not that Chelmsford's small, but it's not big. But I think this will, again, we're the largest police department, city police department in the state to be certified. And the way we're going, we could be the largest one accredited if I get this right. That's what they're kind of explaining to me. So that'd be, and that helps us, down the road with liability issues. So you're an accredited police department chief, that's correct. And you did all these training the proper way. You did this. When lawsuits happen, these are the things that kind of go after. And even with grants, I mean, they look at who's accredited and who's willing to do the work and who's willing to take that internal look to see if they're doing the right thing every day. So I know I got really long-winded on that, but I'm kind of excited about it, and I'm proud of the people that did it. I'm also proud of those cops that went in the house. That was crazy, crazy stuff. All young guys. And the interesting part about that was that I called each one individually, and I had a secretary reach out to them. They got me. I think I got on the phone with them. I congratulated them. I thanked them, and every single one of them gave credit to somebody else. Every single one of them, which that to me in a leadership role shows that that shift is in a good place because they didn't take the credit. They just basically praised their fellow work. And considering the climate of where we are in policing right now, for us to be able to maintain that vibe with the these guys are young. These guys, I'll tell you, the guys on that shift probably have under 3 years on the job, all of them. So, and they're a very tight group because they're the smallest shift out of the 3 platoons. And sometimes I worked it for 5 years. It's the craziest shift because for some reason, people when they really want to do something bad decide to do it late at night. So yeah, all the time, 3, 4 in the morning. And we always used to say, if you're out after 12 o'clock, you're up to no good. And we're usually right. You're a city girl, Michelle. You're out that late unless you're working third shift or you know, with 3 things I used to notice when I was on the late shift: the little sun delivery trucks, the milk trucks, and the bad guys. Everybody else was home in bed. That's really the way it rolled back then. It's kind of the same way. So
Brave
I know,
hearts. We call them
yeah.
brave hearts. Mhm.
But I hope I didn't go on too long here, Marianne. I know you want to talk about whatever it is you're going to talk. I don't have
Civil
an agenda.
service exam.
Thank you. I don't have the agenda in front of me. I had to go to a doctor's appointment, so I'm doing this from home. So Marianne, you want to take it from here, or
Sure. I just
if
want
that's okay, Michelle?
Yep.
Okay.
Civil. Yep. It's civil service exams. You're up, Marianne.
All right, perfect. So I will. I just have a few updates. The biggest updates is that the exam has been posted. So the application period is opened. It opened on January 27th, and the application deadline is April 20th. Um, but the Lowell Police Department, the big thing, we're in the process of scheduling 2 virtual information sessions that we will be offering to residents. And due to the pandemic, we're going to have to do it virtually. But just to give residents an opportunity to ask questions about the process, ask questions about the exam, ask questions about being a police officer in Lowell. Basically, ask us anything that comes to mind. So we'll be advertising that shortly once we get the date solidified. But I definitely wanted to get the dates out there regarding the exam itself. And there is a cost to the exam. It is $100. Usually, the civil service has a hardship waiver on their website as well. So if people are having a hard time with that, and we'll probably explore some other opportunities to assist with that as well. Um, but I just want to make sure we get the information out there right now that it is open We will be having information sessions, and we'll be utilizing the committee as well as all of our social media networks to be able to get the word out for the um, virtual information sessions that we'll hold with with the chief, with individuals in the training unit, and usually we also use a new officer too that's been on the job for less than a year to give their experience as well. So we definitely look forward to that. We're excited that the new exam is out and ready to go.
Is that going
We
to be
can,
virtual or how are we going to do that?
We're going to do it virtually. Yep. The
Okay.
information sessions will all be virtually.
I'm sorry, Michelle.
nope, it's okay. I interrupted. So where can they gain access to the application now?
It's on the mass.gov website under the civil service. And if you actually just put into Google Massachusetts Civil Service Exam, the link is gonna come right up as one of your first options, and it'll open up, and it actually gives all the key dates, the application cost, it gives the age requirements, education requirements, which the education requirement is a high school diploma or equivalency certificate. Candidates must be 19 years of age on or before June 12th, 2021 to take the examination. However, I think it's important to mention too that candidates are required to be at least 21 years of age by date of appointment as the municipal or transit police officer, because this exam is not only just for municipal, but it's also for the MBTA transit police as well.
Is the hardship waiver visible to them when they go to the mass.gov site
Honestly,
to apply?
sorry, I need to do a little bit more digging on that because normally it would be right underneath the fees. And when I opened it up today, it actually wasn't there. So I need to do a little bit more digging on the hardship waiver.
Yeah,
don't
that
think-
would be a great incentive today, considering a lot of people's situations. If they want to make a career change, and this is the avenue that they're going to be taking, you know, it would be a great incentive to get
Mhm.
them to apply and join the local police department.
Well, that was a great question too, because I did notice that the last process we went through to try to find it on the website was a little bit challenging. I forget how we even found out you had that because I never knew it. But we made sure we got it out when we had our sessions that the kids knew that. Um, but yeah, that was a good question, Michelle. Another thing, I don't want to mess you up here, Marion. So go ahead.
Nope. That's. I just wanted to give a brief overview, real quick, because we are going to delve into it even more so when we do the information session. So we plan to do 2 information sessions, one the end of February, one the end of March. So it's well in advance the April 20th deadline.
You know, because one of obviously the again, our concerns are the manager and I have had this conversation about people losing interest in this field. You know, this job used to be very sought after for many years, so we really don't know what the effect is going to be. I know there's a lot of people retiring in the state. I know Boston PD lost a ton of officers, and people just they can get out are getting out. And then with all the negative media you see out there about policing and some warranted, absolutely, but we're afraid that people are going to look at the job and say, why would I do that? It's dangerous. No one appreciates what we do. Why would I do that? So we're going to try to, change that and stay the course here. So we have to look down the road. And we had a discussion with the manager, and it's at early stages. We were going to do a cadet program as far as bringing people in and um, get them interested in police work. But what we're going to do is even take that further now. We get sidetracked by COVID-19. So because one of the downsides of this bill that we don't like, especially for a police chief in a city like ours that's multicultural, is that they're going to have civil service exams every year as opposed to 2 years. So usually what you see when you have the first year of an exam and we put out the jobs and 10 people, there's 10 openings. Most of those people are veterans or disabled veterans. They go right to the top of the list. So we're afraid that that's going to hurt people of color in the city when they go to take the exam, because the exam is going to keep changing every year. The list is always going to be the people that can get to the top, the veterans and the disabled veterans, and then you get into the hundreds and the 99s. So actually, the manager was good about it. So we're going to try to look at what Boston PD does, and they have a cadet program where they actually hire kids that are between 18 and 24, at the Boston PD. They're civilians, but they wear like khaki clothes. They you know, they work the main desk or whatever, talk to people when they come in, take reports. They do a lot of the stuff. We just started. We had a virtual meeting. Or I did, but someone, I think it was one of the training people, had a virtual meeting today with Boston PD, and they talked to a sergeant down there. And they've been doing this for many, many years. Actually, the commissioner who just retired was a cadet on the police department 30 years ago. So it's their way to be able to reach down into different neighborhoods in the city, like Lowell, Boston, Worcester, Springfield, and get kids that are interested in this job, have them come work with us, see if they like it, and then they would get preference on a civil service list once we get a home rule petition passed. So there's going to be some commitment by the city on this. Again, we're at the very early stages. I've even yet to get to sit down with the manager until we, we other than just having an initial discussion about what we found out so far. And the Boston police sergeant said they love it down there because they get to actually know the kids before they even go to the police academy. They save spots at the police academy for the kids, and most of them are kids of color from the city. And we talk about this all the time. Those are the kids that you want to be caught. Kids that walk in the shoes of people that live in the city that we police. So I'm excited about that. I just hope I don't run out of time because I don't know how long it's going to take as far as doing this. We got a couple of things that we want to do, but that's definitely, I think, needs to be a priority considering the climate and this bill. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on that, but we'll definitely get back to you when we know more on that one. I gotta make sure I put the manager in too next time I see her. Hopefully she's watching tonight.
You have a timeline on that, Chief?
No, you know what? Because we're so early. It's so like, I mean, like I said, there'd have to be a commitment from the city. This could come down to a budget situation because obviously we'd be hiring more employees, obviously not at the rate of a full-time police officer. So there's a lot of things that need to be hashed out by people that I work for, as far as the funding, if they want to do it. Is there a true flavor for this? I believe the manager, she's had brought it up and asked me to look into it because we had talked about this a year ago, and then, like I said, COVID took everything sideways on us. And when I told her the challenge of now having a list that's only good for a year to kids in the city, that could be a problem. And she's like, "Well, let's look into it." So I did talk to her several times today and tonight, but it was about other things that were going on. But I'll definitely find time. I don't know how she finds the time. She busy person, but we'll get moving in the time frame. I really don't know yet, Michelle, but maybe I'll know more as we go forward.
We'll keep asking.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
So,
I have a question. I'm sorry.
sure.
That so one was at the end of February. I think we have like 2 weeks left in February. So when do you think that you'll have like the dates set, and also like, are you gonna share with us so we can like share with more people?
Most definitely. And you are correct. There are only 2 more weeks in February. Time flies by when you're having fun. So we will have a date set shortly. And you know what? That may end up that may go into the first week in March, because February is so short. Um, but hopefully we'll have a date shortly, and we will definitely be getting that out to the committee, and we'll be leaning on the committee members and other community members as well to get the information out to the residents and who would be interested, so we can get as much attendance, as many people in attendance as possible.
Also, have another question. Sorry.
Sure.
Have you guys thought of like putting flyers with that information like around downtown and like businesses that would allow that? Do you think that would be like a good idea?
I think definitely. We are in the process of creating a flyer. So instead of just taking what civil services put out and putting it in, we have someone actually in the process of creating a flyer, and that's a good idea to use the businesses to get the information, and restaurants to get the information out there wherever we can put it. We will definitely put it up.
Right. We had a meeting last week about a recruiting strategy. Obviously, we're going to be a lot more aggressive this time to get people on board. We talked about the Mass State Police actually come out with, again, they get money. They come out with a website. It was on their website, I believe, a flyer, and it was pretty impressive. It was, pointing out the pros of being a police officer, the financial stability, the rewarding aspect of it, which regardless of what's going on here, this job is very rewarding. I mean, when you save someone's life, I know how those guys feel. They were at the fire the other night because I've been there, and I gave him the talk about how, yes, it was absolutely a tragedy. It could have been much more of a tragedy. So you need to concentrate on the people you saved. It could have been a lot worse than it was because of your actions. And so it kind of brought me back to when I was a young cop. So that's why I had to personally call them and let them know that if they need anything, support, if they're having a hard time processing all this. I mean, there's nothing worse than when you're a cop and you try to save someone and it doesn't go that way because we're all human. And but again, this job can be very rewarding. It can be heavy sometimes, but it can be rewarding. So I thought that they did a good job. So we need to find a way to convey that. It's not all doom and gloom. Um, so that's what our goal is going to be. I don't know what we have next.
So we are working on flyers that we can share as a committee in any of our social media platforms or any of the local businesses, bodegas, wherever is willing to allow us to hang them up.
Yep.
That will be provided to us. Is
Yes.
that something that's going to be manageable? So, I mean, we will help do the outreach and spreading that out, and any other organization and committee in the community that is interested, I'm sure would probably, well, I would hope that they would collaborate and market it, because we're trying to improve the public safety and the diversity and all of that good stuff within our community. So we want to try and take advantage of any of those resources as well. I think that now for what we have left in time, we want to be able to allow Nader to share some good stuff that he has, that he created on community ties, which will probably answer a lot of these, a lot of the things that you actually brought up, Chief, with regards to training and education. He has a lot of good stuff he prepared and he wants to share with us and our viewers. So we're gonna give it over to Nader, and he's gonna educate all of us. Go for it, Nader.
Hi, everybody. So this is just a proposal that I've been working on so that we could have a general outline for what we want to do as a committee. And like Michelle said, a lot of what the chief already touched on that he wants to implement, that Lowell has already implemented. And it's about working on that and continuously trying to be ahead of the curve like we always have, and keep Lowell as that bastion for other police departments to follow. So what is community ties? Community ties is like I said, a proposal, and it stands for transparency, innovation, education, and safety. And obviously, the community aspect of this means that the community that the police serves, bringing it in more into what's going on daily, like committees such as this that serve as partnerships between community groups, between schools, everything that we're a part of. So by bolstering those partnerships with youth groups, ethnic minorities, and low-income individuals, we can attract that young potential, that human capital that's there. And we already have those partnerships. It's really about expanding them and working on them and making sure that those those groups are actually, basically serving as a funnel for a new workforce. To every time, let's say, officers retire, we already have some cadets, like the chief was saying, or we already have some people interested in it. The next part, obviously, is the first part of ties, which is transparency. So obviously, that connection with the community and the police, it needs to be open and transparent. So how do we do that? So a lot of people have wanted to see body cameras and more CCTV across the city that protects officers as well as protecting the community. It could be crucial in, investigating crimes. It could also help clear up any misconceptions. I know with the case we were talking about last meeting, if there were, let's say, more cameras, more footage, we could see that the officers were doing everything in good intent. They wanted to save him and, talk to him and, but misconceptions. So we could do that. Transparency, we could also improve that with more community policing programs back to the community, giving back, creating those direct bridges and those partnerships that are strong and lasting and can actually create a more diverse and inclusive department that's transparent, open, all these things that Lowell has stood for as long as the department's been around. Um, some ideas could be like creating an inclusion and oversight department. Obviously, that's with the city and all that, but it would be a great idea that's just there. Obviously, the next part is innovating. So we need 21st century policing, like the chief has, and I have reiterated, we are always ahead of the curve, and we need to be ahead of the curve with these new technologies. I know that there's smart policing in hotspots that's already been a program. Public dashboards. I know the city of Boston, I think, has some public dashboards. Smart sensors. So when there's a gunshot, there's like sensors that can pick up the general location. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chief. There's a that's correct, right?
Yeah, sure.
Shot spotters.
Yeah.
We've spoken with people from Shot Spotters. They actually was supposed to come in and see me last week, but the city did toy with the idea of doing that. But when we looked at the incidents compared to other cities of shots fired, um, back then when it was looked at before I was the chief, it came down to a financial. Maybe you might know they're very, very, very expensive. Whether the state could pay for them, but I know what you're saying. But whatever we can do to make people feel safer. But yeah, these are all good. I don't want to interrupt, but please, you're doing a good job.
And then predictive policing, obviously with technology, that's going to become. I know there's they're toying with the idea of not the city per se, but AI that's going to play a big part in policing and catching crimes even before they happen. And obviously, this has a cost, but upgrading systems and tech and streamlining will streamline the operations, but also save lives and improve the efficiencies, which in turn save money in the long run. And I mean, saving lives is what the police is here to do, to protect and serve, and be an integral part of the community. And then the education aspect of it, which is obviously expanding the outreach that we're already doing, so that we're educating the community, and they have all the resources available to them. And then obviously we want to, like the chief said, we want to professionalize the police force. We want to make this a career. It already is a career. It does lead to financial stability, but a lot of people still have that idea that policing is like first response, but it is first response, but it's also a professional career path. You can live your whole entire life being a police officer, good living, like Chief said, have a mortgage, a family. So if we provide training some more to the police officers on mental health, on diversity and inclusion, on basic language, because obviously Lowell is a diverse city, it improves the police officers. It helps them with those certifications. They're already ahead if they already trained on that, if they already done that. I know Pittsburgh State. I know when people graduate from Pittsburgh State, they can get their MPTC certification. So imagine if we had a program like that where UMass Lowell students, we have a nationally recognized criminal justice program. Imagine those students could graduate with MPTC and then go directly into the force. Because I have friends of mine, obviously they're 19, so they can take the test, but they can't be police officers. But they're like, hey, I want to join the police force, or I want to work as a civilian in the police force. If UMO had a direct pathway, which is, I always say it, it's across the street. Science Center is across the street from my school. When I go to the dorms, it's across the street right there. So it's kind of a resource that we could tap into. And
This sound familiar, Marianne? Yeah, you're going the right way here, Nita, because we already had this discussion. We came this close to going to UMass Lowell. We actually think we should run our academy out of UMass Lowell.
yeah,
So, and we've had conversations, and we were all set to go. We're going to try to get it done in the spring for our academy class. And then COVID-19 hit and tripped us all up. But we're still in conversations with them up there. Chancellor Maloney has been great. So that's on our bucket list too. But all right, hit another home run. You're doing all right here.
and then obviously the priority hiring and that pipeline will serve as having more formalized officers with training and masters, and that's not all they need. You could obviously, we just need a GED to be an officer, but if an officer can have these opportunities to not only help the community and become better officers, but also build their skills and build their interests. Because say if someone's really interested in, let's say, the public policy aspect of it, once they become a police officer, and they start to see, and they're like, hey, maybe maybe I should be the people at the state house looking at these policies and seeing it from the perspective of a police officer. Or let's say if at the executive office of public safety, I'm not sure the name.
EOPS.
EOPS,
Not
yeah.
EOPS,
If there was a police officer as the secretary of that department, you would see that they could provide good insights on being a police officer, but also serving as a civilian, a bureaucrat in an administration. And then finally, our safety aspect of it, which is building upon those programs and the initiatives that have a proven track record. So what we're doing right now, keep building upon that, promoting those preventative strategies to prevent crime and to create a more proactive instead of reactive approach. I know that everyone wants to be ahead of the game, but when we really, implement everything and work together, we can do that. And then obviously working with other departments around the region. I know greater like crime doesn't stop at Lowell's border and then oh that's Lawrence's problem. It's a greater Lowell problem because you see there's people from Lawrence coming to Lowell, Lowell chumps. We're all intertwined. So if we try to streamline those operations, that helps even more at tackling crime. And then finally, obviously, China, I know the Chiefs has been working hard at this to encourage more women, ethnic minorities to join the force, to hold those leadership positions, administrative positions, and whatnot. And then a final quote that I had is a safer city starts with a police force that reflects the city itself. So I think we're trying to work towards that. And these are just some ideas that could, you know, tap the problem. I don't know. That's just.
No, I think you did a great job. And to hear, this is good for me. To hear a young person have passion about what we need to do in the city is very important. And you did a good job. And when we talk about body cameras, I think they're a must. I think that many police officers now were afraid of them for a long time, but now they realize that they actually can help them in, paint the proper pictures that people thinking they know what happened will actually get to see what happened. I'm fortunate. Last week, I got a call from Tom Turco, who's a Secretary of Public Safety. I met Tom over my short stint here as chief over the last 2.5 years a couple of times, and he asked me if I would be on a statewide body camera committee to come up with policies on how we're going to use these cameras, what we're going to record. So I jumped in both feet on this one. I mean, I'm busy, but I couldn't be busy enough not to do that. I think I owe it to the city. I think it could work. It could put us in a position of them possibly providing funding, which because these body cameras are very expensive. So again, that would take the heat off the back of many of our people live in the city, the tax dollars that we can use for other things, programming, whatever. I have some help from some of my friends doing my resume, hopefully. So, because I never had the superintendent spot in there, my resume stops at deputy superintendent. So I'm hoping my friends that I sent that to today that has some success because we have to send it to the governor's office. I have to get vetted by the governor's office. I'm like, this would be interesting. But anyway, hopefully this is going to work out for us, and I'm kind of looking forward to it because this is the way we need to go. We need to. We've met with and the manager's been at the forefront on this. She knows it too. And there was a meeting actually today with Axon, who's like the biggest provider of um, body cameras and tasers. And it was an interesting meeting. Myself, the manager was on it, the union president, the union lawyer, and 3 or 4 people from Axon. And I'm hoping that people see, through the trees here and see why we need to have these. It's for their own protection. And I told the union president that a couple of weeks ago. I said the only way these young officers are going to make this ride, whether it's 20, 25, or 30, is to be able to show people what they do every day and that they're doing it right. Because right now the mob's controlling the message, and the media is steaming it up. I always go back to the media. I know LTC's on here, but when I was the PIO, I always remember a veteran Boston reporter of color. We had lunch together, and he was in Lowell for a story about a dog. And I never got so many media inquiries in my life, from like all across the country. And this is the one where the dog got kidnapped in Lowell and found in Cambridge. Unbelievably, found in Cambridge at a bus stop. So the media was all over that, and I'm like, it was Byron Barnett. I'm like, Byron, what is the big deal with this dog? And he's like, Kelly, just remember something. This is not about the story about the dog. This is about getting people to watch TV. So it's really not about the news. I thought that was an interesting thing. Like, so they want to grab a hold of you and give you their message, and they do it by, making things, oh my God, and everybody jumps on. It's like the weather. How many times they tell you that the weather's going to change every 5 minutes? That's all about getting you to watch the TV, and then TV stations make the money off commercials, and whatever. It's just interesting to see where we are right now. But Native, I really appreciate the energy here. This is good stuff. Michelle, anything else?
Very, very informative. I learned a thing or two myself. And I told him that I appreciate all of his work, right? It's important, like you said, Chief, to have young adults that are, digging into these areas the way they are, because they're a great resource for their generation. So if we're going to keep providing this information combined with what you're offering, and we can all work collectively to make sure that we get all of this information and all of the resources out there, like you say, right? Everyone's using, well, not everyone, a lot of folks are using the media for their benefit to promote their agenda. So if we start working smarter and collectively, we can take all of this information and all of these resources and all of the other community organizations and organizers and just business owners and members of the community who are actually interested. And we'll use the media to promote what we need to promote, what's actually going to help improve our city. Instead of just picking it apart, we need to start working on what's going to actually help improve it. So let's use the media to help improve it. That's my take on that. And I think that Nada did a phenomenal job providing that information, because I used to do this when I was young, right? But now we're so busy doing whatever else it is that we're doing. And in my case, it's a lot of, real estate and faith-based work, but everyone here is doing what they do best. So if we're all going to collectively put our minds together to do something to improve our city, this is one of the ways. Help educating one another, right? That's my take on that. So we got to make sure that we're transparent, like he said, with everything that we're providing. That's why I said, is the link there? Can they get access to this link? And is that incentive visible? Because if we're really going to help, we can't have them running around chasing the tail and trying to jump through hoops. We gotta give them the information. No more excuses. Let's get it done. That's basically how I'm looking at things now. And I don't know if that's putting it too harsh, but I believe that's what we need to do. We need to help them as best as possible, Chief.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's a bit of a challenge for them, and the easiest we can make this process for them, I think it'll work for everybody. But again, you talk about partnerships and getting words out there. We're actually partners with LTC. We actually have another thing that kind of went sideways, but our Keeping Up with the Cops TV shows, that's what we're going to try to use to get some of this positive stuff out. So we're hoping that, our LTC partners have already done a couple of shows for us. So, we can use that as a tool for us across the city to show people what we're doing and find a way to grow from there.
Absolutely.
I do want to, yes, we have our first registered speaker, and I want to admit Fallon Manico to our Zoom call. She's registered to speak on the community ties. So I'm going to admit Fallon right now. Hi, Fallon. Sorry for the delay.
Hi, no problem.
Oh, there she is.
Can I just start?
Yes, you can. I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry. Hi everyone. My name is Fallon. I am a Lowell resident. I've lived here all my life. And I just came to talk to you guys about what community ties can be for this community. In the wake of so much bloodshed, so much lives lost due to police brutality, it's really come to my attention that this initiative is long overdue. Change is long overdue, and we need to start acting now because this is very serious. In our community, we've lost Moses Harris, and it's just the fact that we have to wait this long for change is ridiculous. And the simple fact of like social media has portrayed this whole entire incident as how come, how come there's no body cam video of the whole entire interaction. And it just dawned on me the fact that like the root of the problem is that police officers don't wear body cams. It's not even about the misinformation for me. It's about the fact that police are not wearing body cams, that are not supplying sufficient evidence. So I just feel that Community Ties, the whole entire initiative, can bring together community organizations, and putting resources before reprimand is something else that's really important to draw from here. Creating transparency within the police department, and also putting towards resources for police officers to be well informed about diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's no such thing as a police force that can do the job that doesn't reflect the ideals, the diversity, and the people of the little community. Those are just some of my thoughts, but I welcome any discussion, and you can just go from there.
Well, Fallon, I appreciate your comments. I understand this is a tough, difficult time. I really can't get into Moses' situation other than I actually had a conversation tonight with Emily Byrne from Trahan's office again. We've talked about this numerous times. Do we wish we could find Moses? I wish I could find him the day it happened, because I know as a parent, if that was my child, I would be very upset. But there's obstacles to what's stopping us from finding him, and that's not the only person we've lost in the water over the last 6 weeks. Three of them. One we were able to find, and unfortunately for Moses, and another woman that went into the water. With our best efforts, we could not bring him home like we wanted, but we continue to work to try to find him, but it's difficult. And we've been down this road before with other people that have lost their lives in the water, either by accident or whatever. Sometimes they're recovered quickly, and other times, depending on the time of the year, that takes a lot longer. But I fully understand how difficult it must be thinking that Mrs. Moses Harris' son is being treated differently than other people. And I don't really see that as the case here. Like I said, if we could find him, we'd bring him home. And we probably did more, and not that this matters, but more of an extensive search for him than probably any search we've done, because we wanted to show the community in the city that we will go and do what we have to do over and above to try to find him, to show you, to build that faith, to do right by the family. And believe me, if we could get him and find him and put family at peace, which is very difficult to do when you lose a child, but there'll never be peace. But I understand the climate, and I've seen what's happened in this country, and I understand that there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. But I appreciate you coming on here, Fallon, and voicing your concerns. Because again, back to the young people of the city, you guys are the future of the city. So you're going to have to figure it out. I mean, I'm on the back nine here. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. God will probably judge that, decide that. But again, you know what? To see the interest of the young people in this city from all different backgrounds as I look across this screen is kind of a good sign. It's good that this city will remain on a path, but it has work to do, like the rest of the country does. And that's why I appreciate all of you being on here and giving us your ideas, your opinions, and what direction you think we need to go. But the key here is communication. And I heard what you said, Fallon, very respectfully. I heard what you said. And we just keep working at it. It's not going to happen alone, like Michelle says. We got to work at it. Does anyone else have any thoughts? Any about young people?
Nader, since you created the proposal on the community ties. Do you have anything to say with regards to Fallon's comments?
I think Fallon said it right when we have to expand those partnerships and be there in the city. And the chief, with the U, I really would love to see that UML Academy because I really do see the interest within. If it's just my friends, I could just imagine how much people in the criminal justice and other majors, because there's people in other majors that want to be police officers too, not just criminal justice majors. There's political science majors, economic, nursing. I mean, a nurse police officer would be kind of awesome, to be honest, because that's double. But
I think we've had those.
we
I
have.
think I think Maggie Malik. Maggie Malik was a nurse. She's retired now.
Mhm.
But Maggie was a nurse at the emergency room at St. Joe's Hospital for years. And then she took the police exam. Later, she just got bored with nursing and jumped on with us. And I don't know if she ever wish she went back, but yeah, I believe there was maybe one other too. But yeah, I mean, I come from a background of policing, all right? That benefits me in a way, but it also limits me in a way. You know what I mean? So to have other people in the police department that have different backgrounds, different views, like Fallon, a different life experience is huge. I mean, you can't just have all, my father was a cop, my brother was a cop. Unfortunately, that's where I am. And it has worked for me in a way as far as being effective. But maybe I've had to work on listening a little harder than other people have, but I'm committed to doing that. I have been for many years now as I grew through this job and realized how important it is. So I agree with you that we need to reach out as far as we can. Whether it's UMass Lowell in Middlesex, a lot of our city kids go to Middlesex. Um, I know we're in the process of assigning someone to Middlesex that's a little more reflective of the community. But it's so tough right now. No one's in class. So we're losing that connection. We're losing that connection that we had in the schools since COVID-19 happened. And it's probably needed now more than ever, considering where we are as a country. So I just wish this COVID thing would just disappear so we can all get on track here and do the hard work that needs to be done.
Yeah, and definitely to add on to that, listening is a very valuable tool in this community, and there's a lot of voices to be heard.
Mhm.
There's a lot of um, perspectives to be looked at. So I just definitely feel like reaching out into the community and exploring what community policing is, as many communities are starting to transition into that. It kind of is sad to see that like things like community policing only really happen in communities just because they're popularized. But I think there needs to be an initiative put forth to start that, to come forward with getting to know the people that you are serving in this community. And that can be done in so many ways. But that's just something to me, like, again, like reiterating what I had said before, like putting resources before reprimand and really looking into the people that you are serving um, definitely can build relationship within this community.
Right. And I know you weren't here for the last meeting. I don't know if you watched from home or whatever, but that's always been a challenge here. I mean, we've been doing community policing here for over 20 years. Our police academy is the only police academy in the state that really does it. I mean, we've been doing it long before anyone else did. But it's really important that we get to everybody. And I mentioned this before at meetings. It just can't be the same people at these neighborhood groups. It needs to expand. It needs to expand to uh, other groups in the city are young, and the table's open here. It always was. The door's open to because, like I say, you're the future of the city, and I think it's important that you be involved. I think it's important that we hear you, you hear us, and it just can't be like the same. I talk about the time when I worked over in Sunnyvale, which is probably one of the most challenging places to live, police, whatever, in the city, and there's good people there. I remember one day walking down Third Street, and a woman sitting on the front porch with her young child, probably two, and I'm like, "Why don't you up at the park, like on a day like today, enjoying it?" She's like, "Oh, I don't want to go up there because all the gang kids are there." Now, I never would, I mean, I knew the gang kids were there, but I didn't know it was to the point where people who lived in the neighborhood, a single mother, was afraid to go there until I had that conversation. And I know there needs to be more deeper conversation than just that, but that's just an example of, us reaching down and doing, Mary, we do our sidewalk meetings. We kind of take the meetings to them into the neighborhoods because some people don't feel comfortable, going to neighborhood meetings where there's, a lot of white people, these people could be undocumented. So that's scary for them. Even though we have a policy, we don't ask, what your status is. We do not do that because the last thing we want to do is drive that wedge between our most vulnerable. And what I mean is people are in here undocumented, trying to survive, and all of a sudden they're afraid to call the police. That can't happen, right? We can't have a woman be a victim of a domestic violence incident that's afraid to call the police because they're afraid that we're going to show up and we're going to ask her what her status is. And next thing you know, ABC happens and she's sitting in some place in Boston getting ready to get deported. So, but it's important that, we do reach down and we sit down and we have conversations. And that's why I'm kind of excited about this advisory committee because it could be the nexus to this, to get us to the next steps, to meet more of our younger people in the city and hear what they have to say.
Chief, I have a question.
Sure.
Is part of, or rather, I'm going to rephrase that question. Community policing, having precincts in all of the areas that we do throughout the city of Lowell, is that considered part of community policing? Having a precinct in Centerville and on Broadway Street or Bridge Street, like in all the little different precincts that we have, is that considered community policing, or is community policing? I'm just trying to take this in and make sure because I go back to people that I know to see what their takes on it. Because obviously we want to be able to address any of these comments that are coming up, right? We want to be able to help them. So, or is it just police officers walk on feet, like joining meetings or walking the streets?
Well, I think that what's the word I want to use? As far as the precincts being in the neighborhood, to me, I think the intent there was that people have their own like police department right there because they don't want to go all the way to Arcane Drive. And the goal was to try to get people to build relationships by not being afraid to stop in the precinct. And of course, some people are because their status or they might have had a warrant that they haven't cleared up yet or whatever. Or they might just not trust police. But the goal was when this all started back many years ago was to make a footprint in these more challenged neighborhoods to make sure that people didn't feel like they were out on an island all by themselves. And hopefully the next thing that would happen was there'd be relationships formed by people not being running into the police officers in the neighborhood. But I think that, to do that, you need to have a police department that's more reflective of the community we have here. So that's what we need to do, and that's what we've been trying to do over the years as we've been hiring. And now with this cadet program, hopefully that will help us with that too, if we can get that move forward. But yeah, I think that it was basically a way to show the people in the challenged neighborhoods that we don't care about you. So we're downtown, you're on your own, but that's not really what's true, and we're not just going to show up at your house and take a call and then leave. We have an investment in that neighborhood. We work in that neighborhood, and that was the goal. Did it come out exactly the way it was intended? No, because things change. The climate in this country's changed. Our climate and policing's changed. So the goal here is to keep that footprint and try to keep building those relationships and have these conversations that Fallon's talked about and bring more people to the table and see what we need to do.
Chief, can I just add a little bit? I'm sorry,
Sure.
Michelle.
Nope, go right ahead.
In regards to community policing, so community policing is not just one thing. It's not just having precincts in the neighborhood, or it's not just having officers on bicycles and on foot patrol. It's all encompassing, and it's also not just a unit in the police department. It's woven through every thing we do in the Lowell Police Department. So it's doing pre-COVID. It's doing our outreach and our safe summer movie nights. It's doing National Night Out. It is being in the schools, being in the neighborhoods. It's walking the beats in the neighborhoods, talking to businesses, talking to the neighbors. There's so many. You can't just. There's so many things to point out in community policing that it's hard to just point pinpoint one thing. It's partnering with other agencies, knowing that the police don't have all the tools in the toolbox. We need to utilize our colleagues in the community, UMass Lowell, Middlesex Community College, the Boys and Girls Club, UTEC, Lowell Community Health Center, like all of these relationships that we have, and so many more that I'm not even LTC, so many more that I'm not that I'm missing. It's all encompassing. So and there's so many other things that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head that community policing includes, but it's everything woven throughout the department. That's the best way I can describe it. Not just one unit or one set of officers or one, having the precincts in the different neighborhoods. It's so many other things.
Alan, do you have any suggestions that we could probably utilize to help improve what is already in place with regards to the community policing? It's drawing my interest, and I would like to have the committee look into it further.
Yeah, so some things that I was thinking of was like having more diversity, equity, inclusion trainings for up and coming officers and officers that are already sworn in. And also just I'm losing my train of thought. Sorry. um yeah, I think just encompassing that more and getting different voices from the community and partnering with different organizations. Like I'm a part of Merrimack Valley Black and Brown Voices, and we very much would like to have a voice in the community when in regards to community policing and ways to improve that.
So reaching out to other organizations and basically getting their input to see what could help enhance the community policing that's already in place.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm not sure if this is already in place, but even having like a diversity, equity, inclusion office within the police department or in Lowell as general to kind of making sure that that's being enforced on a regular basis.
That's been brought up before as far as having a someone assigned to City Hall to handle that, but I don't know where that is right now.
One
Yeah.
one thing I do want to mention that so earlier I was talking about the upcoming civil service exam that's going to be in April up, and we're going to have some virtual listening informational sessions on the exam and what to expect and any questions that the community has on being a police officer, anybody who's interested. So Fallon, now I have your contact information. I will definitely would like to send you the information as well. Make sure we get it out to your group and so many others. So we started this 2 years ago. Superintendent Richardson started this 2 years ago to have these listening sessions before the exam. We want to expand it even further, even though we're going to have to do it virtually this year. We want to make sure, especially through this committee, through the community, that we're getting this information out, the opportunity to take the exam, because we're a civil services department. So that's the first step in becoming a police officer is you have to take the exam. So we'll do these informational sessions. And then for those Lowell residents that have signed up to take the exam, we also offer a almost like a prep session for those that are signed up to take the exam, free of charge for Lowell residents who have signed up to take the exam to, go through, whatever we can go through. We actually hire someone from the outside to come in who does this professionally, does the prep sessions professionally. So we definitely want to make sure you're included in that. So we'll make sure you get that information.
I just wanted to add something. The proposal that I was just talking about, that it goes back to what Marianne said. It's not one thing, it's multifaceted. Like there's multiple things to it. It's kind of what the proposal is getting at, like to make that shift and to build upon the community policing. So like the community aspect of it, the transparency, the innovation, education, safety. Because I know, like, for example, like I see community policing like in three things at least, because I'm looking at this DOJ thing and it's like community partnerships, organizational transformation, and problem solving. So like the community partnerships and stuff, and then the organizational, which is not just like Marianne said, one office, but everyone working towards one goal, and then that's how you problem solve. So I just think
I think we pretty much covered the agenda at this point. Unless anyone else has anything to say or any other questions, comments, concerns.
I have a question. So how do you guys plan to have the new resource police officer at Middlesex like get connected with students over there, because mostly it is online and not a lot of people are actually going to the building. So in terms of that, and like when are they going to start, and like what is your plan to get for them to get connected?
The interview process is still ongoing.
Right.
Yep, for that. Sorry, go ahead, Chief. Sorry. Just wanna.
Yeah, no, right. The interview process is still going on. I think they had to provide resumes to Middlesex under the law, the way it's written now. I get to pick who the school resource officers will be, but as I did with the school department, I basically let them pick who they thought was the best person for that job. And then if I knew something that they didn't know that I thought would hurt that relationship, then I would step in, but I've not had to do that. And that's the same way it's going to work here at Middlesex. The other issue would be as far as how they're going to connect. I have had conversations with Pat Cook from Middlesex, and I guess some of the kids are coming in to some of the buildings. So, whether we do something virtual with people get to get online and meet their new school resource officer is something we can look at. That was discussed briefly, but it's important that we get the right person over there because a lot of the kids in the city going to school there. We need to build relationships with them, like Fallon's talked about, and have those face-to-face conversations. So that's where we are. I don't know if they've been. I know they're in the process, but where exactly, Marianne? I mean, that's the whole problem too. Is I think we're gonna have to do the interviews.
Yeah,
too,
the
so-
interviews will have to be done virtually. However, they should be getting scheduled within the next few weeks.
Okay. Well, is anyone else? Well, I know Michelle's running this meeting, but I just want to thank everybody for being on tonight and the hard work and the honest conversation, and it's what needs to happen. So I'm out. So Michelle, if you want to do what you do, but I guess we'll talk at the next meeting. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone as well. So if no one has anything else to question or comment, or the final steps will be to motion to adjourn. And we're going to continue to work on an agenda for the next meeting. And as usual, we will post it. This meeting is adjourned, Chief. If you agree, we're good to go.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.